In this lecture series, we're going to be talking about specific central nervous system pieces and parts. Remember, the central nervous system is comprised of our brain and our spinal cord, and to begin with, we're going to be talking about the structures that protect our CNS. This is comprised of four major things, which is our skull, the meninges, our cerebrospinal fluid, and the blood-brain barrier. Skull, relatively obvious, that's the bones that are going to be protecting our brain. The meninges are some connective tissue layers, which are going to be encapsulating both our brain and our spinal cord. Cerebrospinal fluid is, as you may have guessed, a fluid that's going to be traveling through our brain and our spinal cord. And then we have the blood-brain barrier, which we mentioned in the previous lecture series. The blood-brain barrier, as its name suggests, is the barrier between our blood and our brain, and that's brought to you by the astrocytes, those glial cells that should ring a little bit of a bell there. The first of those protective structures I want to elaborate on is going to be our meninges. So these connective tissue layers that's encapsulating our central nervous system, so both the brain and the spinal cord. And this little image here, down in the purpley bluey color down here, should be representing our brain. The other three colors lying on top of it are going to be the meninges. The outermost meninge here in this yellowy orangey-ish color is our dura mater, and it is very tough. It's there for protection, and it's going to help and attach the central nervous system to surrounding structures. Underneath that, in the reddish color, we have the arachnoid mater. And the arachnoid mater is in the middle here, and it has some collagen fibers that is going to help and separate it from the pia mater and create a little bit of a space. This space is called the subarachnoid space. So subarachnoid because it's underneath the arachnoid mater. An arachnoid, like arachnid, spider-like, it kind of has a spider web-like appearance. And the subarachnoid space is going to be filled with cerebrospinal fluid. Now again, these meninges encapsulate the entirety of our central nervous system. So the subarachnoid space surrounds the entirety of our brain and the entirety of our spinal cord. So we have this layer of cerebrospinal fluid completely surrounding our CNS, located within the subarachnoid space. The pia mater, the next layer, is the deepest layer of the meninges, and it is directly adhering to the central nervous system. You can almost think of it like shrink wrap. So it's this thin layer of connective tissue directly adhering to the central nervous system. Now there's one space to mention in addition to the subarachnoid space, and this is the subdural space. Now the subdural space, as you may have guessed, is going to be deep to the dura mater. So it's underneath the dura mater, in between the dura mater and the arachnoid mater. So in this image, it would be whoop, right in there. But you'll notice it's really not much of a space, and it's not really a true space. This is where the dura mater lays on top of the arachnoid mater. So there shouldn't be anything between those layers, but there's just nothing connecting them. The subarachnoid space is a true space that's separated with those collagen fibers that has cerebrospinal fluid within it. There's nothing within that subdural space. There's nothing keeping that space propped open. If you've heard of a subdural hematoma, that's where you had blood that has pooled within that space. But in a typically normal, happy, healthy individual, there shouldn't be anything within that potential subdural space.